March never crashes into K-pop headlines. It slips in quietly, carrying a pressure only insiders and long-term fans know how to measure. This year, that pressure feels heavier, denser, charged with a rumor powerful enough to bend the entire industry before it even materializes: a full group BTS comeback. 14 tracks quietly discussed behind closed doors. Early projections of a global tour so massive it could dominate touring calendars for years. Ticket demand estimates so extreme that insiders are already preparing for system failures before pre-sales even begin. This isn't nostalgia. This isn't wishful thinking. This is gravitational force. When BTS moves, the industry doesn't react. It recalibrates. What makes this moment volatile isn't just their return, it's the ripple effect that follows. Algorithms begin to shift priorities. Media pipelines narrow their focus. Casual listeners who drifted away from K-pop years ago start paying attention again. For entertainment companies, this surge creates opportunity and exposure at the same time. Because when attention concentrates this intensely, every delay starts to look deliberate. Every vague announcement feels calculated, silence stops being neutral and starts sounding like strategy. That's where Blackpink enters the conversation. Not through fan-fueled rivalry fantasies, but through timing that feels increasingly uncomfortable. YG Entertainment's communication has turned into a masterclass in controlled uncertainty, teasers without dates, dates without confirmation, promises framed as patience tests, a November release hinted at, then quietly erased, investor anxiety rising as each quarter passes without clarity. By late 2025, the narrative smoothly shifted to early 2026, wrapped in familiar corporate language about preparation and quality control. Patterns don't disappear just because companies refuse to acknowledge them. Each delay pushes Blackpink closer to the same window BTS is expected to dominate. Fans notice. Analysts notice. History shows that when giants overlap, they don't cancel each other out. They multiply attention. Debate becomes fuel. Proximity stops looking accidental and starts resembling leverage. This isn't about a direct clash. It's about standing close enough to a cultural earthquake that the aftershocks lift everyone nearby. When two giants move at once, music becomes numbers, loyalty turns defensive, and fandoms transform into unpaid marketing machines. It's exhausting, it's profitable, and it's exactly how K-pop's biggest moments are engineered. If you want to understand how power, timing, and fandom psychology collide behind K-pop's most explosive eras, follow the channel, subscribe, and keep watching, because this story is only beginning. Once the noise around comeback timing begins to fade, a more uncomfortable conversation starts forcing its way to the surface, one fandoms rarely enjoy having out loud. K-pop presents itself as endlessly innovative, constantly redefining global pop culture, always positioned one step ahead of everyone else. It's a comforting narrative, especially for fans who invest emotionally in believing their favorite groups are pioneers rather than participants. But beneath the flawless visuals, sharp styling, and precision choreography, the reality is far less romantic and far more calculated. Lately, a growing number of releases feel familiar in a way that's difficult to ignore, not because they lack polish or quality, but because the sounds echo trends that already lived full lives elsewhere, long before K-pop industrialized them. Minimalist production. Nostalgic textures pulled from past decades. Short runtimes engineered for streaming loops rather than live stages. Breathier vocal deliveries floating over beats optimized for algorithms instead of emotion. These ideas didn't appear overnight. They circulated quietly through Western charts, underground scenes, and digital spaces long before K-pop repackaged them with flawless branding and relentless promotion. This is where the illusion begins to crack. In many cases, innovation simply means unfamiliarity. A sound feels new because it's new to a specific fandom, not because it's unprecedented. K-pop's real strength has never been pure invention, it's execution. The industry excels at identifying momentum early, amplifying it faster and louder than anyone else, and selling it back as something revolutionary. That process isn't inherently wrong. Global pop has always thrived on shared influence. The tension emerges when borrowed ideas are aggressively defended as originality, and anyone who points out the blueprint is treated like a threat. That defensiveness reveals insecurity. If the system were confident in its strengths, it wouldn't need to deny its references so loudly. Speed is the engine driving this machine. K-pop listens closely to what's trending, what's viral, what's dominating timelines and playlists, then feeds it through the idol system at maximum efficiency. But speed leaves seams. When trends shift, pivots happen so fast that familiarity becomes impossible to hide. Not plagiarized, not illegal, just unmistakably traced. And when an industry refuses to admit what it's doing, it quietly prepares the ground for much larger conflicts ahead. If trend chasing is the glossy surface problem, money is where the cracks turn structural. Nothing exposes the imbalance of power in K-pop faster than settlement disputes, because this is where fantasy collides with payroll. Recently, attention shifted toward a situation that felt less like routine accounting delays and more like a warning light flickering behind the scenes. Reports began circulating that millions of dollars in artist payments were allegedly unsettled across multiple acts connected to the same corporate structure. What made the situation unsettling wasn't the rumor itself, but who was involved. These weren't struggling rookies quietly waiting for their first check. They were profitable, visible artists with packed schedules, sold-out venues, and constant media exposure. Tours wrapped successfully. Encore dates were added. Merchandise moved at scale. Touring is supposed to be the clearest revenue stream in the industry, the hardest to obscure. So when allegations suggested that entire touring cycles passed without proper settlement, dismissal gave way to suspicion. Behind closed doors, frustration reportedly escalated. Quiet complaints, private venting. That kind of behavior doesn't come from artists casually waiting on paperwork. It comes from patience wearing thin. Publicly, company responses followed a familiar script. Carefully worded statements about negotiations, contract interpretations, internal adjustments, and potential legal procedures. Language that sounded professional and plausible, yet offered no timelines, no figures, and no confirmation that payments were complete. Just enough structure to slow scrutiny without delivering clarity. Fans are often told they don't understand how settlements work, as if complexity excuses opacity. But settlement in K-pop isn't abstract. It's wages. It's how artists pay staff, support families, and survive careers that burn fast while demanding constant output. When multiple high-level acts appear tied to the same unresolved issue, coincidence stops feeling convincing. It starts looking like a system under pressure. Whether every allegation proves accurate almost becomes secondary. The deeper issue is that the system allows this fog to exist at all. Contracts favor companies, delays hide behind clauses, and artists, even successful ones, are encouraged into silence to protect future opportunities. When profit accelerates faster than accountability, someone always absorbs the cost. What makes situations like this especially dangerous isn't the dispute itself, but how normalized the fallout has become. Financial tension surfaces, and the consequences almost never land where the decisions were made. They land on artists, staff, and fans who are told to wait, to trust the process, to stop asking questions that make executives uncomfortable. Companies lean heavily on the idea that settlement is complicated, that audits take time, that delays are simply part of the system. Sometimes that's true, but complexity becomes a shield the moment transparency disappears. This is where power dynamics quietly do their work. Artists operate under contracts designed to punish public dissent. Speaking up risks being labeled difficult, ungrateful, or unprofessional. Careers in K-pop are short, fragile, and dependent on perception. One wrong move can close doors permanently. Silence becomes survival rather than consent, a calculated choice made under pressure rather than agreement. At the same time, frustration is carefully redirected away from corporate structures and towards safer targets. Rival fandoms become pressure valves, chart battles intensify, streaming wars escalate, online conflicts explode, consuming energy that might otherwise be spent questioning contracts, revenue splits, or financial transparency. The system benefits when fans fight each other. As long as loyalty is expressed through numbers and defenses, no one has to explain where the money went or why answers keep getting delayed. Even when disputes are eventually resolved, the damage doesn't vanish. The system remains intact. The lesson learned isn't accountability, but endurance. Endure the wait. Endure the silence. Endure the pressure. For newer or smaller artists watching from the sidelines, the message is clear. If top-tier names can be left in uncertainty, everyone else is replaceable. This is how an industry conditions its talent. Not through overt threats, but through patterns repeated often enough to feel inevitable. The machine doesn't slow down when strain appears. It accelerates. More releases. More tours. More content. More pressure. Someone always absorbs the cost, and it's rarely the people at the top. When the spotlight fades and the headlines move on, the truth remains. Behind every chart-topping comeback and viral moment sits a system built on pressure, silence, and calculated endurance. Power controls timing. Passion becomes profit. Loyalty shields corporations from accountability. As long as fandoms are busy fighting each other, the hardest questions never get answered. If you want more deep dives into K-pop's hidden power plays, scandals, and the real cost behind the spotlight, subscribe to the channel, hit like, drop your thoughts in the comments, and stay tuned. This story doesn't end here.